Welcome in to the newest episode of the Hoth Hangout podcast. We're glad to have you with us here listening. This is the final podcast before we will before we will watch the brand new Star Wars show Ahsoka. We're so very pumped about that. That's going to be our major topic of discussion today, including a little bit of news surrounding the Ahsoka show. But before we get to all of that, be of course subscribe to the Hoth Hangout YouTube channel and check us out on all the socials, including YouTube, X, as it's recently been rebranded, TikTok, and Instagram. You can find us at the latter three of those at Hoth Hangout. Also, you can get the Hoth Hangout podcast in audio format anywhere you get your podcasts, including Spotify and Apple. We again appreciate you for listening. And as I said, we're going to be talking a lot of Ahsoka today. We are very, very, very much excited for the release of this show here in less than a week's time at the time of the release of this episode. Joey, how are you doing? How's your excitement levels?
It
How you
is
feeling about Ahsoka?
super high. I mean, when we were building out the notes for this particular episode, you just see Ahsoka, Ahsoka, Ahsoka. I mean, pretty much the entire way down the line here. So yeah, we are. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're definitely excited. I can't believe it's next week. I remember when we were done with. What was the last thing? Was it Bad Batch or Andor? Whichever the last show that we kind of watched together and reviewed together. It
I
just
think
seems
Bad
so
Batch.
far
Yeah,
away. It just seems so far away. This week and the next week just seems so far away. But we are finally here, and yeah, we it's going to be exciting.
definitely. One thing I also forgot to mention with the Apple and the Spotify, recently we found out you can leave reviews on both of those as
Yes,
well. So leave a 5-star review on
please.
Apple and Spotify. We would very much appreciate that as well. Also, shout out to the 154 of you subscribed to the Hoth Hangout YouTube channel. Um, in recent Ahsoka news, Star Wars has been dropping lots of juicy content over on Twitter,
Hmm.
or I guess X now, as we're calling it. A couple little short clips over the past week or so, I would say, have been released. Some of them a little bit more recently than others. I think the most recent one was 3 days ago. Does that sound right?
Sounds about right. Yeah.
Some of the ones we'll be discussing and breaking down today, we got a little more of a clip of Sabine wielding a lightsaber in combat, as well as Rosario Dawson breaking down kind of as we're calling it, a too long didn't watch or too long didn't read version of Star Wars Rebels, or I guess Ahsoka's story more generally. And then another one kind of focusing on Anakin Skywalker, played by, of course, by Hayden Christensen, which was also a recent revelation that we found out about Ahsoka. So I guess let's start with the first one, the Sabine training sequences that it shows in this brief 45-second clip or so. By the way, if we'll post the links to each of these clips in the show notes for the episode as well, if you haven't seen them and you're interested in checking them out yourself. But essentially, what this clip
Concentrate.
shows for the first
Take in
10 or
all that
15
is around
seconds,
you.
and then perhaps even further into the clip as well. But we're getting a
Slow
first
down.
extended look at
I have reason
Sabine
to believe the Empire is
wielding a
still free.
lightsaber against
We
one of
face
the
another war.
series' main antagonists, who we will presume to be the main antagonist, one of them at least. Probably going to mispronounce her name, Shin Hati. Am I,
That's right.
am I saying that right?
We'll just say Shin for sure.
Okay. I feel like I'm just talking about someone's leg every time I see her
Yeah.
name, but, so yeah, it's kind of this there's almost this parallelism between, like, Ahsoka and Baylan fighting each other.
Hmm.
The way the
Yes.
show is being portrayed in the marketing with the trailers and whatnot is that Shin is to Sabine as Ahsoka is to Baylan. It feels like those are gonna be, like, counter forces throughout or at least with the lightsaber duels throughout the show. What did you think of seeing Sabine with a lightsaber?
I mean we've seen this before. We've seen it in Rebels where she's wielding the dark saber. So
Mhm.
it's always cool to see, but now to see, which I believe is Ezra's lightsaber. I think that's what we are led to believe there, that's Ezra's lightsaber that she is fighting with. I think.
We should get some, super, Star Wars enthusiasts out there to, like, pause it at specific
Yes.
timestamps and check to make sure the hilt of the
Yes.
lightsaber is Ezra's. It is
Exactly.
green, so
It is
you
green. Yeah.
know, we're halfway there,
Right.
for
So
sure.
I mean, to see that And I'll we'll talk a little bit more about Sabine later on with the discussion about the Ahsoka series in general. But I'm excited to see this piece of it because you see somebody really Sabine is somebody who you never really thought would get any type of training from any Jedi or former Jedi or anything. So I think seeing this for the first time was really cool. And it did give vibes of, kind of the old school um, master apprentice teaching lessons and, where the apprentice is on the ground, like, getting beaten down by their master. So I think
Yeah.
it's cool. It's cool to see. And we'll see what it comes up. I'll be interested in when in the series we're actually going to see this too.
Yeah, this feels like it's probably like a episode 1 or 2, at least the
Hmm.
the training sequence with Ahsoka, maybe episode 2.
Hmm.
And I should also mention, episodes 1 and 2 of Ahsoka premiere on the 23rd of August, not just episode 1. We'll be talking a little bit more about those episodes specifically. No details or anything, of course, just generalities later on in the episode. Um, Another thing I should mention, I pointed this out to you before we started recording, but at the end of the trailer, there's a clip where Sabine is flying in what I assume is the Ghost with
Hmm.
Hera piloting the ship, and it goes to Sabine and she goes, "Woo!" She lets out this yell, and it reminded me of Luke and the Millennium Falcon
Yep.
when Han Solo's flying. So there was some sort of like throwback to
Yep.
Luke and the Millennium Falcon right there.
Yeah. Don't get cocky,
Um,
kid.
yeah, exactly. Real quick before we move on to the second clip, yes or no? Do they make Sabine force sensitive in this show?
Oh my gosh, we're gonna go right into that now, aren't we?
Just yes or no. We can talk
Just
about
yes
it
or no.
more later
Okay.
if you want. Yeah.
What do I want, or what do I think the show does?
Either or both, whatever you
Okay.
want.
I want her to not be force sensitive,
Okay.
and I think the show will make her kind of force sensitive.
What? Okay, we're definitely going to talk about that more
Yeah.
later. We have to bring that back up at some
Yes,
point.
absolutely.
I will say I'm definitely on the same page with you as not wanting her to be force sensitive. Um, I don't know. Like, I don't think it's unheard of that
Yeah.
we can see a non-force sensitive lightsaber wielding person.
Finn.
Is that
Finn.
Finn? Yeah, yeah. Stood his stood his ground with Kylo, kind of, I guess. So, um,
Yeah.
remains to be seen. We'll talk about it more maybe
Yeah.
towards the end of today's episode, but let's hop into this second clip first of all. The Rosario Dawson. It was actually, I think, an extended. I want to say like a minute 10-second
Yeah.
clip,
Hmm.
but the theme of the clip or the title of the clip is Rosario Dawson explaining all things Ahsoka in 30 seconds or less. So it basically gives the very brief backstory of
And
Ahsoka, and
she's
and
and
it'll,
she's speed talking the entire time. Maybe we
oh
also
yeah,
add, yeah. Which is
it was
impressive.
impressive,
It's impressive. Yeah.
impressive, yeah, impressive. Um, yeah, so not too much here in terms of like new like groundbreaking news about Ahsoka or anything, but like we said, kind of like a too long didn't watch version of
Right.
previous Ahsoka content. And then you also pointed out that there's a moment in this where we got a little bit of the sassy chopper that we're used to seeing from Star Wars Rebels.
Yeah, at the end where Rosario is basically done, she's kind of waiting for some acknowledgement from Chopper, and then Chopper does the Chopper thing, gets a little sassy, and then
Yeah,
she's like rude, and that's
yeah.
very. I would love to see Ahsoka say rude. That would just be that would be interesting.
So I also made a note of to you before we started recording that I had a
Hmm.
Chopper fun fact
Okay,
for you. Do you know who plays Chopper?
who
The voice of
plays?
Chopper.
Isn't it? It's Dave Filoni, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know that until today,
Oh,
and I was like,
really?
"Oh, wow, yeah. That's pretty
Trivia. Let's
fun."
go.
Trivia.
Trivia part 2 coming soon.
Yeah, another trivia episode on the way. We could I don't know when we'll be able to do one of those again. Maybe we'll try to sneak one in sometime with all the Ahsoka craziness over the next 2 months.
Yeah.
But, um, anyways, yeah,
Isn't that
more
a great? Isn't that a great sentence? Ahsoka craziness in the next 2 months. That's awesome.
yeah. Dude, oh, man. Okay, last news segment, and then we're gonna get into
Yeah,
the
yeah.
deep talk Ahsoka discussions because we got a lot to break down, and I'm just excited. I know
Hmm.
we're both pumped. So This third clip that was also released on the Star Wars Twitter was titled. Well, first of all, the clip was about again Anakin, kind of from his POV, almost speaking to Ahsoka.
Everyone in
It's
the older
presumed that
Galactic
this speech,
Skywalker
although took
family,
place
few would live to see
previously,
the
like when she
return.
was much younger
Primarily
during the
among
Clone
those
Wars, and he's telling her
illegally
about the
and the
war,
Jedi.
and even at one point says, "Trust your instincts," which
In
I
this war,
found.
you will face more
I
dangers
think
than
a
you
lot
think.
of the way they're
Every
choosing
master
to
is
go
my
about
responsibility to prepare you
Ahsoka's
for it.
character is kind of
I will always
drawbacks
be
from
there
like
to look out
uh,
for you.
Obi-Wan and Luke's
Mhm.
relationship,
Once a rebel, always a
or
rebel.
even the way she
Don't
handles
be afraid.
Sabine, like Anakin and her relationship, and how
Trust your
she maybe
instincts.
uses that or will use that in
I know
the
you
way
can
she
use
trains
this,
Sabine
Ahsoka.
and whatnot. So
Right.
yeah, Anakin saying to her, "Trust your instincts," just like Obi-Wan said, "Trust your feelings" to Luke was kind of another key point in this one, I thought.
Mhm.
You also noted that there's a moment in this clip where she is wearing what would appear to be a blue Imperial uniform.
Right.
Like maybe she's going incognito or undercover, has a disguise for some reason.
And I gotta say two things. One, I don't remember ever seeing a blue uniform. It looks like because I think it's Imperial because it has that logo on the shoulder there. At least that's what I think it looks like. But two, you're gonna tell me that people don't know what Ahsoka looks like? I mean, if you, that's gonna be. I mean, I don't know. I guess it depends on the last time people have seen Ahsoka. Because this happens in what did we determine around 11 ABY, right, or 9 to 11
Yeah,
ABY or something like that.
yeah, yeah,
Um, yeah, I guess it depends on that because we know that she makes appearances in the Mandalorian, which is around that time period. But between that, so that's when we at least seen her last. But before that, when was the last time anyone has seen her? So maybe just she has been in isolation, she's been in exile, and work honing her skills, and nobody's seen her, so nobody knows what she looks like. But I thought it was interesting to see somebody as prominent as her in the Star Wars universe being in a in the incognito. I just thought that was a funny little side.
right. No helmet or anything, just like hoping that no one recognizes her. Which maybe they don't. But also, it's worth noting we don't really know what the greater status of
Hmm.
the bad guys in Star Wars are at this point in time.
True.
At least, the Empire's gone, the First Order is gone, or maybe there's remnants of both. Clearly, there are remnants of both, but as to what the greater organization of the big bad in the Star Wars universe is at this
Right.
point in time, we're not really sure. So I don't know. That remains to be seen. Um, or no, wait, I think I misspoke. Not the First Order, right? This would be between
Right. The
this would be
Empire
between Empire
and first.
and
Yeah.
right, right. Not First Order, just the
Yeah.
Empire,
Yeah.
excuse me.
Right.
So maybe some sort of intermediary in the blue uniforms.
Yes.
Yes.
But blue's
And then
so
of
like
course
happy. I mean, that's kind of a
I know,
surprising
right?
color.
Yeah.
Normally, it's like a
Yeah.
gray or a black, or so to have like a bright blue. It's a little bit shocking.
Yeah, yeah. And then the last thing about the clip that you pointed this out to me, I didn't even notice it, was that in the title of the clip, like in the text on the tweet, it was called "A New Jedi Will Rise,"
Yeah.
which is particularly interesting because Ahsoka notoriously left the Jedi Order, and up until Mando didn't really consider herself
Mm-hmm.
a Jedi. So
Mm-hmm.
is it referring to Ahsoka? Is it referring to
Mm.
Sabine?
Right.
What do you think?
I've I don't know. I mean, part of me thinks it's just a marketing thing. They're gonna do a
Yeah,
little bait and switch on us. Like, oh, a new Jedi will rise. Wink, wink. Kind of a Jedi. Because
yeah,
because
yeah,
when you talk about Star Wars, you talk about Jedi and you talk about Sith. You don't really talk about the people who left the Jedi Order. You don't
right.
really talk about those gray areas that you and I love so much. So I,
Yeah.
I think they just had to put that just to say Jedi, and this is Jedi, and that's to give it a name.
You think it was just a Star Wars intern who was like, "Oh, wait, she's not a Jedi?"
Right.
And then too late, we already posted the video.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, so
Uh,
so I think it may be that, but again, it remains to be seen until the show starts.
yeah. Another kind of the last piece of news we wanted to touch on before we actually start talking about sort of our anticipation of the series itself was the episode runtimes. The runtimes for the first 3 episodes were all released. I gotta say, I saw these and I was like, "Oh, that hurts a little bit." For those of you listening to the audio version, who can't see the graphic on the screen, episode 1 will be 54 minutes and 21 seconds. Episode 2 will be 42 minutes and 15 seconds. Episode 3 will be 34 minutes and 50 seconds. And then you can almost like subtract another almost basically 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes from each of those episodes for credits and at the end and at the beginning of the episode. So in total, we're getting 1 episode that's over 50 minutes, which
Yep.
is good, I think, for the premiere. I'm very happy with that.
Hmm.
And then it just kinda goes down. It's like, oh, 30, 42 after the credits, only 38 minutes of an episode for episode 2.
Hmm.
The 3rd episode is incredibly disappointing for a runtime, not
Right.
even
Yeah.
35 minutes and without credits, like,
Yeah.
barely over 31 minutes.
Right. I mean, 20 minutes less than the first episode, which is kind of
Yeah.
crazy if you think about it.
Yeah, and we only get 8 episodes total, so it's like, you know every episode where it's a 30-minute as opposed to a 50-minute episode, it just
Yeah.
feels like we're getting I don't wanna use the word cheated, but, like, cheated out of a couple scenes that we could have
Right.
gotten, you know?
What's crazy,
Uh,
and think about this. After this episode, after these three are done, you get the fourth episode. It's half the season ready.
yeah, yeah,
It's half the season's done. So I don't want to think that far ahead. I want to enjoy the Ahsoka show week by week, but to have that
sure.
in the back of my mind, I'm already a little bit sad, especially if they're going to just keep going down. Episode 8 is going to be like a 5-minute episode.
Minutes, yeah. Yeah, do you like the fact we're gonna be able to watch the first 2 on the premiere night or not? Because like you said, it's only 8 episodes, and after the premiere night, we're gonna be 25% of the way through the season.
Right. I guess it's definitely a different way to do it. Trying to think of what Andor did. Didn't Andor do? I don't think it did 1 and 2 in the same week.
I don't think so, but Andor was also longer than
Yeah,
Ahsoka,
yeah,
which I
yeah.
loved. Andor is
Hmm.
like the perfect in terms of the number of episodes. I think the perfect length.
Hmm.
These like 8 episode seasons, just it doesn't. At least with Mando season 3, if that's an indicator, it doesn't feel like it allows for adequate time to
Yeah,
develop a really solid story, and that's
right.
I think my biggest worry going
Yeah,
into Ahsoka is that we're not gonna get, like, a fully developed story. Like, I think 12 is so much nicer of a number
yeah,
for a
yeah,
season,
yeah.
but,
I'd be fine. I'd be fine with 10, to be honest. If
yeah, even 10,
yeah,
yeah, but my hopes are still pretty high even though it's only 8 episodes, and
yeah.
I'm sure it'll be good, and that's not to knock on the show or anything, that's just maybe one of my worries.
I'm just saying, episode 3 better be the shortest episode of the entire season.
Oh gosh, if there's an episode shorter than the episode 3, I mean, 35 minutes, that's not very long
Right,
at all, and again, that's like 30 minutes with credits, so
right.
we will see, we will see. Well, again, that's the episode links of the first 3 episodes. Hopefully, we get some slightly longer run times with episodes 4 through 8. Um, but at this point, we're gonna kinda be moving into talking about the series itself, some of our expectations, maybe just a very brief background on the series itself, just going into it in case you perhaps may not have this information, or perhaps so that all of us can be on the same page with this information. Because I know Joey and I, like, whenever we watch a show, we're like, what year is it in the Star Wars timeline right now?
Right.
Um, so the events of Ahsoka run concurrently with the 3rd season of The Mandalorian, which would also explain Ahsoka's noticeable absence in season 3 of Mando uh, during their effort to reclaim Mandalore. Just to put this in the context of Rebels as well, Rebels ends the last scene in Rebels is well, you know, uh, yeah, Rebels ends in 1 BBY, 1 year before the Battle of Yavin, which is episode 4. Ahsoka begins again. We mentioned sometime in that like 9, 10, 11, 12 ABY era. So this is roughly 10 years after the end of Rebels. It also takes place within the first 10 years of the New Republic, which will be showcasing the struggles in trying to establish the government, all in the midst of the return of Grand Admiral Thrawn, who this is something I would like to talk about it as well at some point. I don't really have a great sense of how Thrawn, as the main antagonist, is going to cross over with, like, Balin and Shin and even the
Mhm.
Magistrate, who we saw in a scene, so that'll be something, of interest. You wanna talk about that now or in a
Yeah,
bit
yeah.
after? Okay. So, what is your expectation for I don't know why I always this is the dark side thing talking. I like focusing on the antagonists of shows a lot, typically because they
Someone's got to.
yeah, they provide intrigue,
Well,
there's
if it wasn't for them, there would be no story, right?
sure, yeah. Let's start with Balin Skull. Of course, we should also again mention, you know, rest in peace to Ray Stevenson, the
Yes.
actor who portrayed Balin Skull, who passed away just probably about less than 2 months ago at the time of the recording of this podcast. Um, Sadly, we won't be able to see his performance, in a second season or beyond of Ahsoka, but we're grateful as Star Wars fans for his, uh, being a part of the Star Wars universe, and that will be kind of a bittersweet moment watching him in the role of
Mhm.
Balin. But what are your expectations for Balin? And maybe we can couple Shin with Balin because they kind of seem like a pairing in the show.
Yeah, I mean, I think in one of the trailers, he explicitly says, "We're no I'm no Jedi," or "We're no Jedi."
Hmm.
Who else has said something very similar to that? So I think that was very much on purpose to
Yeah.
see either, basically where Ahsoka could have fallen to, if she and I don't, obviously we don't have any real background with these particular characters, if they were ever part of the Jedi Order, some type of formal Jedi training or anything like that. So I mean, they're just the team with the red lightsabers at this point, because we know that they're not. I don't know if they're inquisitors or what, where they land on the spectrum of Force users.
Are the lightsabers red though? Because there's I think argument to be made that they are somewhere between the dark side and gray.
Oh,
Because they're
really?
like they almost have like an orangish tint to them,
Ah, okay.
which thematically would indicate that we're not quite as bad as the Sith were, but
Right.
we're still not gray Jedi. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
Like
Yeah, I guess I didn't even see that.
their lightsabers are just like tinted a little bit more orange than we've seen in the past from antagonists in Star Wars.
Okay.
So, I don't know if that's indicative of uh
It's just not your TV. Your TV settings may be a little bit off.
maybe it's my computer monitor, yeah. I don't know if the color of their lightsaber is entirely indicative of where
Mhm.
their morality lies, but
Right. Yeah.
that's,
Have we
something to
seen
consider.
any orange lightsaber users?
Not in I think only in, video game Star Wars
Mm,
content.
yeah, of Cal Kestis, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't definitely not in live action, that I know of or can remember at least, and I
Mhm.
don't someone correct us if we're wrong, but I don't think it's appeared in Clone Wars or Rebels that I can remember, but, anyways, what does the orange lightsaber mean? We'll have to wait and find out. We also kinda mentioned earlier that Balin is appears to be facing off against Ahsoka, and Shin appears to be facing off against Sabine in more than one scene in trailers. How does Thrawn fit into this? Because I think they're
Right.
really like pumping up Thrawn as like, oh my gosh, he's in live action now. I'm sure
Mhm.
Lars Mikkelsen, the actor who's playing him, is going to do a great job.
Mhm.
But are Balin and Shin working for Thrawn?
Right.
Like, are we even going to see Thrawn in the first half of the show? That's kind of the vibe I'm getting. I don't know if you're feeling that or not.
That we will, that we won't.
It just feels like we won't. I mean,
Mhm.
to be fair, they wouldn't probably reveal much of the Thrawn footage beforehand. But we've seen a lot of Balin and a lot of Shin,
Mhm.
which suggests to me that we're going to see more of them as villains than Thrawn.
Mhm.
At least early on,
Right.
I could see us getting to Thrawn eventually. So I think that's part of the story too, is like seeking Ezra,
Right.
really finding out more about what Ezra and Thrawn are up to. So it doesn't even feel like to me. I wouldn't be shocked if we finish the premiere night and we haven't seen Thrawn.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
I mean,
Do
that
you
would be a little disappointing, but it wouldn't shock me.
here's a hot take. Do you think the Thrawn piece of it all happens later in the season to help set up for a season 2?
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
I I think that is way more likely than Thrawn showing up in episode 1 or episode 2 of the show.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't dislike that course either, because that gets
Mhm.
us excited as Star Wars fans. It's like, "Oh, Ahsoka's gonna have, like, 3, 4 seasons or something like that."
Mhm.
If they kind of that's how they design these shows. They design them so that they're meant to be.
By the way, pay your writers so this can happen already, people. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we need to get that writer's strike over with here soon, you know what I'm saying?
That's right.
Um,
We were
uh,
hoping that it would be over by the time of this premiere, I remember.
yeah.
And
What if
don't
what
say
if it
it.
just never ends?
Don't say it. I don't want a chat GPT version of Ahsoka season 2, okay?
That that would be interesting, let me tell you. Um, yeah, I don't see Thrawn fitting concretely into the early story of season 1.
Mhm.
It feels very much like, for example, with Mando, how the conclusion of season 2 felt way more satisfying than the conclusion of season 1,
Mhm.
at least for me, and I
Yeah,
think
oh
for
yeah,
a lot
yeah.
of Star Wars
Yeah,
fans
absolutely.
too. Yeah, I think that's probably what Ahsoka is going to be. I don't
Mhm.
think season 1 is going to end, and it's gonna be, like, resolving anything.
Mhm.
I think it's only going to be building anticipation and excitement for season 2. So I don't if I had to guess, I don't think I'm gonna put it out there now. I don't think we're gonna see a ton of Thrawn in
Yeah,
season 1.
right. I would go along with that as well.
Yeah. Um, I have one more thing in terms of antagonists, but I'm gonna hold on to it and talk
Okay.
about it a little bit later in one of our further segments,
Okay.
and maybe we can just, hop on to our next thing we wanted to talk about, which was the world between worlds. And
Oh boy.
this just introduces so many potential things to the world of Star Wars. I think there is a pretty big effort on the part of show writers, particularly Dave Filoni, for people to not view this as, "Oh, now we can go back and change anything that ever happened."
Right.
Because I think that's a wormhole you don't wanna open. And in a sense, because the the temple on the fall was destroyed, I think that's an effort to put closure to it.
Mhm.
Like, oh, but we're certainly gonna see it again because there's multiple, portals, and we see one in the trailer, presumably that's
Yeah,
what it
yeah.
is. And that's also where we see the magistrate with Balin and Shin, I guess, trying to open this thing, I would assume is what they're doing. Um, it just I think this is what I am most hesitant about
Okay.
for Ahsoka. Um, I think I think I'm also nervous that the episodes are gonna be too short, but that's to me, that's different. I can live with a short episode. What
Mhm.
would really not be great is if they somehow use this world between worlds. I don't think this will happen for the record,
Yeah.
but I don't want them to, like, leave it too open-ended to the point where when season 1 of Ahsoka ends, people are like, well, why don't they do that to save Qui-Gon? And why
Right,
don't
right,
they do
right,
that
yeah.
to save Mace Windu? And why don't they
Mhm.
do that to save Anakin? You know what I mean? I don't and I don't think Dave will allow that to happen,
Right.
but I think it's fair to say that following Rebels, those were some of the things people were saying about the world
Absolutely.
between
Oh,
worlds.
absolutely, right.
And even still are saying. So,
Mhm.
I want the show to do a good job of handling it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think it's easy when you have a mechanism like this to make changes, and
Mhm.
I don't feel like they'll go this easy route to do anything like that. You know, I think I feel like they're purists as far as the timeline, and from a business standpoint also, you don't want to go overwrite somebody else's stuff, that it
Mhm.
just looks bad, so I don't think that's what they'll do. But I'm kind of with you that there needs to be specific rules almost to the use of this. Like I said, this mechanism. That's probably the best name I can give it. The world between worlds, because I mean, I will admit, once they introduced it in Rebels and we saw how Ezra used it, basically saving Ahsoka out of it, because honestly, but at that point, we didn't really know what was going to happen with the Vader Ahsoka, duel there
Right.
that happened in the previous season, I believe, right?
Right.
Um,
I think the end of season
was it season
2.
two? Okay, so two
Yeah.
seasons before that.
Mhm.
Right. So we didn't really know what happened. So to know that that was the result of it, that's one thing. Um, but to now, and but the in that same episode, he tries to go say, well, he has the idea to try and save Kanan, you know, but Ahsoka talks him out of it. So that there is a moral responsibility of how to use this, this tool. So I'm hoping that's kind of where we continue to go. Of course, in the hands of the wrong people, aka Balin and Shin, Magistrate, Thrawn, the Emperor, whoever. They don't necessarily play by those same rules, those moral rules, right? So maybe that's so maybe that's where, I don't know. Is this where we see some more info on the Emperor coming back using this in some way? So that's kind of my shot in the dark. Maybe there's something there that we can get off. That we can bring in from this. But other than that, I they seem to be really good about, like, okay, this is how you use it. But don't go too crazy about it. And like I said, I think from a writer standpoint, again, you just don't want to just take Qui-Gon back. You don't want to take Sam Jackson, Mace Windu right back. So I think they'll do fine with it. I think Dave will do a good job with it, but of course everyone's going to talk about how they could retcon the sequel trilogy now and all this stuff. So
This
um
is their avenue, yeah.
yeah, right. So be ready for those YouTube videos that say, well, actually, you could do this, and so
This is how Palpatine came back.
yeah, they tell you,
Somehow.
yeah, and that's yeah. Poe Dameron says it. That's the meme again, right there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be very interesting. I think I think I read an article that, Dave Filoni was quoted in. He was talking about the world between worlds, and he almost described it as he explicitly actually says it's not time travel.
Mm-hmm.
And I totally get what he's saying, because that's not the way the mechanism of the world between worlds is gonna be used.
Right.
But, um, more or less, Ezra put his arm through the portal,
Yeah.
ended up in a different time, and rescued Ahsoka. So, no, it's not time travel, but does it function that way effectively,
Right.
even
Yeah.
though they're not using it that way?
Well, it's easy to say it's not time travel because time travel isn't a real thing. So it's
Sure, yeah,
so we
yeah.
of course it's not time travel because we don't it doesn't exist. So how would you ever know the constraints around it, right?
Yeah, yeah. Dave also goes on to say that he views the world between worlds, and the world between worlds was written to almost embody the essence of the Force,
Okay.
rather than it being this conduit for getting from place to place, and and effectively changing and altering reality just willy nilly.
Right.
Um, which to me reminded me a lot of the 6, at least the way Dave was talking about it, the 6 episodes of Clone Wars, I think it's season 6 with Yoda, where he's
Mm.
learning from Qui-Gon about the essence of the Force.
Mm-hmm.
That's some of my favorite Star Wars content, is when they explore, like, the Bendu episodes in Rebels,
Yes.
where they really dive into what the Force is, because it's easy to, like, look at it from the original trilogy perspective of there is light and dark, there is balance, but when they really dissect it and they get into the nitty-gritty, like the Mortis arc with the father
Yeah.
and the son and the daughter, I love that stuff. That makes the world so rich and deep, and
Absolutely.
I hope that is something I come out of the end of Ahsoka. Maybe not necessarily season 1, but the end of the show, however many seasons it has.
Mhm.
And I think, wow, that really added depth to the World Between Worlds, and that added depth to the
Right.
lore of Star Wars. That's what I enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Oh man, there's gonna be so much, and that's what I'm hoping for is they keep breaking down this lore, introducing new lore. I think Ahsoka's like the perfect show for it because she's been in the animated series. She's been in, now in live action. She has her own books. I mean, she's everywhere. For those who don't, I mean, but there are still people out there that don't really know Ahsoka. That's why they need to have Rosario Dawson do the too long didn't watch 30-second review of who Ahsoka is. And I didn't really talk about it when we were talking about that, but part of me just like there's just so much more. You need to watch, like part of me just really like you just need to watch all this stuff to really have a feel for who this character is. But yeah, we can go on all day about how much we just want everyone to watch everything, but I get it. It's a lot.
It's gonna be good. I'm confident this show is gonna be something we've been hoping for, been waiting for. One of the other last things we wanted to touch on before the end of today's episode is that we wanted to talk about some of the characters specifically that we're most excited to see. Not just the ones that we know are going to be in the show, but perhaps if we were to insert someone who has not been confirmed as being in the show, who might that be?
Mhm.
So we'll start off with the former and each pick a character who we're most excited to see. I cheekily in my notes but other than Ahsoka, because if I had to pick one, it would be her. But the both of us selected a character. Do you want to go first,
Yeah, you can go.
or
You
do
can
you
go
want?
ahead.
Okay. Well, I picked Thrawn not only because um, this will be the first time we'll be seeing him in live action, and not only because I've been reading a book recently, a Timothy
Yeah.
Zahn book
How far
about
did you get?
him.
How
But
far did you get into it?
I didn't get as far into it as I wanted to. I think I'm only 6 or 7 chapters now at this point.
Okay.
But
Good
even
read.
that
It's such a
has
good book.
oh my gosh, yeah. It's provided me so much cool context of the character because the first time I saw yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
you got it?
I have it too, so I need to
Oh,
reread it. I,
nice.
I read it a while back, so I need to read it.
Yeah, I think mine's in the living room right now. I
Nice.
was actually reading it earlier, but there's a great scene. I think I talked about it in last week's episode, but there's a great scene where he meets Palpatine for the first time, and just experiencing that interaction gave me so much more insight into the
Mhm.
character of Thrawn. He's not only extremely intelligent, but he's also cunning, and he knows how to get what he wants, and he knows how to leverage things, even if that means leveraging himself from a position of potential weakness into a position of strength and power. I mean, that's how he got to where he is. That's
Yeah.
how he became Grand Admiral. He
Yes.
definitely didn't start from that place.
Right.
Again, I would recommend the book to anyone who
Right. And
hasn't
he
read
has
it
like the
before.
easiest name ever. Have you?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, let me just look up Grand Admiral Thrawn's like birth name. Because the first time I saw this in the book, I think I spent like a solid 60 seconds trying to pronounce this name.
Yes.
And all for all those of you readers out there of the Star Wars universe, you probably are like, "What do you mean you don't know how to pronounce it?" It's Mithranur hold on. Mithranorodo
Rudo.
is
Myth
his full
yeah.
name. Guys, there's
Myth
apostrophes in that name. There's 2 apostrophes in that name.
Narudo. Right.
Mithranorodo.
Narudo.
Mithranorodo. But this is just gonna be like a,
You know what? In our next trivia contest, should have
y
the proper spelling of Theron's actual name.
this is gonna be a a Duolingo with you and me where we're both just learning Chiss the whole time.
Yes,
But yeah, that's his full real name, which you also learn in the book, which is kinda cool.
that is
But,
very cool.
again, not to ramble too much, I'm excited to see Thrawn. I wanna see how he factors into what kind of the greater evil is at this point in the galaxy, and I want to hopefully see a decent amount of it in the season.
Yes,
I won't be too disappointed if we only get him in the latter couple episodes, or maybe even the last episode, but, because I think that kinda sets the show up on a trajectory for it to be Ahsoka versus Thrawn,
Hmm.
and even Ahsoka and Ezra and Sabine all versus Thrawn. Which again, that this show is being marketed as Rebel season 5,
Right.
so that would make sense. I think.
Right. Yeah. It's gonna be no. It's gonna be the two shots that you've seen of Thrawn so far are the last two scenes, the last two shots of the
The
first season
last
of
30
Ahsoka.
seconds of season
Hmm.
1, yeah.
Yep. They've spoiled it already for us.
Yeah, I wanna see him in live action. He's such a
Yeah.
great character, and to see him come, to life is something I'm pretty excited for.
Nice.
Who's the character you're
I
most
mean,
excited
no
to see?
big surprise here, but I am excited to see Sabine in live action. They ended, kind of to what you were saying. This season of Ahsoka is basically Rebel season 5. They ended the Rebels, season 4 with basically an epilogue that was narrated by Sabine, right?
Mhm.
And there was excuse me, a lot of pressure on her, from Ezra to, that he's counting on her, whatever that means. So I feel like they're using Ahsoka's series, obviously this, quote unquote Rebel season 5, to continue that story. And when we did our rewatch the previous week here, and I was watching those last couple scenes, I was just so excited to, and I was like getting emotional because I'm like, we're about to see whatever this, what we're talking about here. Because for however long we've been waiting since the end of Rebel season 4 to now finally get it here, it's just, I'm so excited to see this, to see her character. The same with you. Of course, I'm excited to see Ahsoka and what she's going to be offering. But anybody else outside of her, yeah, I'm excited to see what Sabine's going to do. They're definitely marketing it like, she was being trained by Ahsoka and she was going to be a Jedi and all this stuff. So, which is something that we never really expected, but and again, I wonder, and I think I said this on Twitter or X or whatever it is, that is this a bait and switch? Is it going to be, this is what it looks like? Because there's even the one scene in the trailer where she's holding her hand out, looks like she's trying to use the Force, and then the scene right after that, or the cut right after that, is Shin saying you have no power. So yes, that's what it looks like, but is that really what happens in the show? I don't think so. I don't think they would give that much away, just based on the trailer. So that's kind of my. I've been burned by Star Wars trailers before. Please look up Rogue One trailers. Things that never happened in the actual movie show up in the trailers and things like that. Especially like Jyn Erso being facing off against a TIE fighter. That never happened, by the way, in the actual movie. So I've definitely been burned by like getting my hopes up for something and then just be like, oh, that either that never happened or that's not exactly how it looks. Um, but either way, I'm excited to see Sabine. Much easier full name than Thrawn, so I think better already. But yeah, I want to see what ends up with her character and her character development.
What do you think the consequences of her being force sensitive are?
Oh, here we go. Now we're getting into it. I mean, when I said earlier about like don't step on other creators' toes. I mean, it's the same
Yeah,
creator. It's Dave, isn't it? So Dave's got a major part in Rebels, and then in this, and so it's I don't the consequences though. It's like the opposite of. I mean, there are stories in Star Wars where some people like kind of learn all this kind of late, right? I mean, great examples. Luke was pretty late in the game. Ray was pretty late in the game. Sabine could be late in the game. That could happen, I guess. Um, so it's not unheard of, but I think but with Luke and with Ray, we didn't have any stories leading into the first time we were introduced to them in their movies, right? Sabine, we have 4 seasons of Rebels, so for all of a sudden to turn around and say, oh, by the way, she can move stuff with rock, she can move rocks with the Force or whatever, it would just be, it would almost feel like you're cheating all of a sudden the people that have watched Rebels, like, well, she didn't have, she was with Kanan, she was with Ezra, you know, it just seems like that would have been a wasted opportunity to have like
right.
another one. What do you think?
Yeah, it creates all sorts of, like, why now scenarios.
Right.
Again, like, it wouldn't be the first person who came into force sensitivity at a later age, but, I hope they don't go that direction.
Right.
I feel like it makes more sense for the show, even though I think you're not far off by this could just be a large bait and switch where they're like, "Look, Ahsoka's training her,"
Hmm.
and then she's really not force sensitive the whole time, and maybe it's just to I don't know,
Just a trainer. Just a
just a
trainer to
trainer.
battle.
Yeah,
You know.
like, does she have to be force sensitive to be trained? Who knows? Well, maybe we'll find out. But I definitely would prefer her to not be force sensitive, and I'll go on record by saying I think they're gonna surprise us by having her just not be force sensitive, even though they've been hinting at her being force
Right.
sensitive in the trailers.
Okay. Okay.
Maybe I'm just hoping too much, but
Yeah, I'm they're leaning on it a lot. That's kind of almost why I'm thinking they won't. That's part of me where I'm the same way, is that
Uh-huh.
they are just. It seems like a lot of information to give,
Right.
in the weeks leading up to the series. So I would be I would be shocked if it was, but not surprised, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see. I think that's gonna be the major topic of discussion following episodes 1 and 2. So,
Absolutely.
which we should also mention, next week's actually, lots coming in the next couple weeks. We've got, not only podcast episodes recapping and covering each of the episodes. Next week's will likely cover episodes 1 and 2, but we'll also have individual reactions to the episodes. So, after you watch the episodes, definitely check out the YouTube channel if you wanna see what our reactions were to each of the moments of the first 2 episodes of Ahsoka. And again, the last thing we wanted to talk about today was kind of a fun hypothetical game. If we
Mhm.
could insert anyone into the show, who would
Mhm.
that be? I went first on the last one, so you wanna go
Yeah.
first on
Yeah,
this one?
I'll go this one. Here's a shot in the dark, just kind of out of nowhere person. Iden Versio from Battlefront 2. She
Nice.
was I forgot the name of the squadron she was a part of, but she was basically part of like an elite squadron, on the Empire. And she ended up defecting, going over to the rebellion side, within the in the game itself in Battlefront 2. And she is still around at this point, so I mean, she doesn't have to play a big part, but you know me, I just like it when they cross over into different territories here. So an Iden Versio would be a pleasant surprise for me. I did like Janina Gavankar. She's the actress that did the voice and obviously the motion capture for Iden Versio in the game. So it'd be a very easy thing, kind of like how Thrawn did it for
Mhm.
Rebels, and Lars Mikkelsen. So I think it'd be pretty fun. I think that would just be a fun thing. I'm not trying to go too deep on these, but I was thinking like there's a couple books called the Alphabet Squadron. There are a couple pilots in there that I think would be pretty cool. But I didn't want to dig too deep into the crates for this one. So Iden Versio, Battlefront 2. She's going to be in
Nice.
episode 6, I think.
Inferno Squad,
Inferno Squad.
right?
Thank you. Yes, yes. Inferno Squad. She'll
The
she'll be in
the
episode
way
6.
the
Yep.
way that the just side note, the way the characters look in that game are just, like, so it's crazy how they can make them so realistic and lifelike.
Yeah. I mean, this looks. I mean, the if you're watching the video version of the podcast, we have a screen cap from one of her, from the game itself, and if you put that up against her actual picture in IRL life, yeah, she is. It looks exactly like her. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be pretty neat to see her. I think there's a pretty decent chance we get just, someone thrown into Ahsoka who you're like, "Wow."
Hmm.
Someone I literally just thought of now that I didn't even make a note for, was are we gonna see Zeb? We know he's
Oh yeah,
alive,
yeah, yeah. Right, yeah,
so hopefully that'd be kinda cool.
yeah. Get the
Um
crew back together. Yeah.
exactly. The 2 people I picked, though, one of them is kind of a silly one. And the other one is very heavily influenced by, I think, not only some of the trailers, but I
Hmm.
think a fair amount of fan theory. It's fair to say. My silly one is Grogu, and then my more serious one is Barris Offee.
Yeah.
I would be pretty surprised if we see Grogu in Ahsoka, although I wouldn't put it past Disney, like, being like, "You gotta have Grogu in at
Yep.
least one episode."
Yeah, just like have him like hopping around somewhere.
Yeah,
We know he could
yeah.
jump like crazy, so
Yeah, exactly. We know he's a lot more powerful now, but we do know this takes place, like, as season 3 of Mando is happening, and we've seen, like, where Grogu is at this point in time. So unless Ahsoka extends beyond the end of the 3rd season of The Mandalorian, I think it's more unlikely that we see Grogu, so that one's kind of just wishful thinking. But then my main one I wanted to talk about is Barriss Offee, who, if you don't know who Barriss Offee is, she was a Jedi at the time of the Clone Wars, very close in age to Ahsoka as well. And there's a whole episode or 2, actually, I think it's 2 episodes, of the Clone Wars, which really she's Barriss is an important character because she's kind of the beginning of what leads Ahsoka to leave the Jedi Order. Maybe not the beginning, but she's definitely the catalyst. Maybe that's a better word to use, in that in these Clone Wars episodes, um, Barriss frames Ahsoka, and the Jedi Council is kind of just unwilling to hear Ahsoka out, and, they kind of accuse her of something she didn't do, and so even though when it comes to light that Barriss is the real culprit and not Ahsoka, Ahsoka is of the mind that, "You didn't believe me, and I told you it wasn't me," and she just doesn't feel like she can put her full faith in the Order anymore, and that they don't have, I guess, the priorities straight, and so all that to say, Barriss is the one who frames her in the episode, and that ends up being, kind of a dark side force user and is arrested by the, Jedi Temple guards, and that's really the last we see of Barriss. We don't really
mhm.
know what her status is.
Mm.
And fast forward to the trailer, a very popular theory that's going around right now. At one point in one or multiple of the Ahsoka trailers, we see what appears to be an Inquisitor who,
Oh.
before this trailer, I always assumed the Inquisitors were gone kind of after the time of Rebels. Um, so first question is, are the Inquisitors still around? Is this mysterious masked person actually an Inquisitor? They have one of those Inquisitor lightsabers with the twirling middle piece or the rotating centerpiece. So that would be my first question. Is the mysterious figure an Inquisitor? Second question is, most of the scenes we see the Inquisitor in the trailer, they're not with Balin or Shin or even the Magistrate.
Mhm.
And so this almost feels like a one-off antagonist rather than someone who's
Right.
working with the other antagonists. And so I think it'd be really cool to
Hmm.
have Barriss be this dark side force user, and part of the story. I don't know what would make more sense for Ahsoka to. I think it would make more sense for Ahsoka to almost redeem Barriss rather
Mhm.
than, like, defeat her and
Oh,
potentially even
absolutely.
kill her as well, so I think that'd be pretty cool to see this unknown Inquisitor-like character be Barriss, and
Right.
this be the conclusion of her arc full circle, and she's actually, like, saved in the
Yeah.
process by Ahsoka, and she's, a light side force user maybe in season 2 or something like
That's
that.
that's our headcanon now. At least going
It is
into
head
this
Yep,
at least
yep,
going into the season. That's a really good one.
officially headcanon. Yeah,
I
I
like it.
think that'd be pretty cool,
I like
so
it.
also, let us know down in the comments, who are you most excited to see in Ahsoka? And also let us know of anyone who has not been mentioned in the show. Who would you like to see inserted into the show, perhaps in a special role of any
Hondo.
kind? Hondo? Yeah, honestly, that'd be so cool. Side note, I walked into the Smuggler's Run ride at
Ah.
Disneyland. I think I talked about this on the last episode. And there's just this giant Hondo talking. I'm like, "Oh my gosh." And of
Nice.
course, all my family members are like, "Which movie is he in?"
Nice.
Anyways, shout out to Hondo. I think that about does it for this episode, but during next week's episode, of course, we're going to be breaking down and covering not just the first episode, but also the second episode, because again, we're getting the first 2 episodes of the premiere season of Ahsoka. It's going to be a
We're gonna be up
blast.
we're gonna be up late that night.
Oh, man, we're gonna be up late. The episode comes out Both the episodes come out at, well, I assume they're both gonna come out at the same time, typically around 2 a.m. our time. We will hopefully have a reaction to both of those episodes uploaded by like maybe 5, 6 in the
Yeah,
morning, somewhere around there,
yeah, we'll see.
shortly after we finish watching them. And then the following night, that would be Wednesday, uh, Wednesday evening, the 23rd, we will record our full podcast episode where we'll cover the details of the episode in full and talk about it with some of our reactions following a 24-hour uh,
Whirlwind
remove.
event.
Yeah, exactly,
That's why. That's
exactly.
why. Part of me just like episode 3, 34 minutes. All right, I guess we could stay up until 2:30, or
Yeah,
that's a little bit
exactly.
better. We're gonna be up to like 4 a.m. on the first weekend, or
Oh,
the first
man.
the premiere.
Hopefully, they do the, surprise drop at, like, 1:30 or something just to
That's
save
right.
us
Yeah,
a half an hour of sleep
please.
at some point, yeah. Well, we greatly, greatly appreciate each of you listening to the Hoth Hangout podcast as always. Remember, you can check out the Hoth Hangout podcast on Spotify and Apple and anywhere you get your podcast. Leave a 5-star review and check us out on each one of those platforms or wherever you listen to your podcast. Also, we are on all the socials, including TikTok, Instagram, and X/Twitter. Shout out Elon Musk.
Not sponsored.
At not sponsored.
No blue
At
checks.
Hoth
No blue check for us.
no blue checks. At Hoth Hangout on each of the socials. And of course, as always, you can check out the video version of the podcast on YouTube. Shout out to the 154 of you subscribed over there. Again, we're going to be posting our reactions to every single Ahsoka episode on the Hoth Hangout YouTube channel. So definitely check it out. We also want to give a special shout out to producer Gibbo. He couldn't be with us for this episode tonight, but he puts so much work in behind the scenes into every single episode of the podcast for making it look all pretty and whatnot and making it go smoothly. So we want to make sure we give some love to Gibbo and
Thank you, Gibbo.
hashtag much love Gibbo down in the comments of the YouTube channel.
Right.
Joey, any last thoughts before this is our last podcast before next time we'll talk on
I
a
know.
podcast? We'll have seen the first 2 episodes of Ahsoka.
I can't wait. And the next 7 weeks of podcast is going to be about this, right? So this
So
is
excited.
Ahsoka. I hope you all are ready for the ride. We are ready. But thank you again, always, for all of the support that you guys give us. We love reading the comments, responding to the comments in YouTube. I always try to, respond to every single one of them. So we love talking with y'all. So make sure to drop those comments in there as well. But thank you again.
Absolutely. Let us know what you're most excited for, looking forward to with Ahsoka. We are super pumped, looking forward to it so very much. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Hoth Hangout podcast. We'll catch you in the next one with some more Ahsoka following the premiere, and may the Force be with you.